Call to order the meeting of the Minnehaha County Planning Commission, and we'll begin with a few introductory comments. As a courtesy, once again, make sure your cell phones are turned off. Any action taken on conditional use permit applications tonight will take effect 5 working days following the meeting unless a written appeal to the Planning Commission decision is filed in the planning office by Monday, September 29th at 5 o'clock. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing on Tuesday, October 14th at 9:15. Meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. At this time, the Planning Commission will consider the consent agenda. The minutes for the August 25th meeting are included in the consent agenda. And we'll start with that. Are there any objections to the Planning Commission members of any of the consent agenda items? There are 2 of them with the minutes. Next, I will read each item of the consent agenda. If any member of the audience objects to the item, please raise your hand and the item will be moved to the regular agenda to allow you to address the commission later in the meeting. Okay, so we'll read those minutes. Item 1 is the approval of the minutes. Item 2 is a conditional use permit, number 1442, to allow a single-family dwelling on the property legally described. It's basically on Hartford Township. Petitioner is Brian Albers. Anyone in the audience object to this particular item? Number 3, conditional use permit to allow semi-trailer sales and service on the property. And it's basically the renter exit is where this one is located. If I'm not misinterpreting, it's easier to say that. It's at the renter exit industrial park. So any objections to the audience for this item? If not, we will
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, if your items 2 or 3, you are free to go, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have 2 items on the regular agenda. Well, following our first, I need a motion to approve the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. For the regular agenda, we'll follow our normal hearing procedure by requesting planning staff to present the report on each item, and then request the commissioner to come to the podium and make a statement and answer questions. Anyone from the audience wishing to address the item shall be recognized by the chairman. Move to the podium and state the name and address for the record. The Planning Commission then will discuss the matter and take appropriate action. Thank you for your cooperation. Start with item number 4.
All right, Kevin Huckman, Planning Commission, or Planning Department. Item number 4 is a agricultural tourism permit, number 1401, to allow a home winery on the property. This winery is located approximately 5.5 miles to the west of Sioux Falls, near Wall Lake Corner. The comprehensive plan has listed this corner as a rural service center, so it is in an area where there's nearby commercial properties and nearby residents both. To the west, it's ag land. To the east, it is residences and commercial land. And the winery itself is going to be located in the middle of the property, so it has a pretty good buffer from anything nearby. The site plan that requires a 1 acre minimum of fruit to be grown on the site. Oh yeah, I should point this out to you. This is looking to the east on Wall Lake Corner. This is the agricultural land looking to the west. For the site plan, it requires a minimum of 1 acre of fruit to be grown on the site for ag tourism permit and winery. This is located where the fruit is proposed to be in the site plan. If he uses kind of that whole front area, it'd be 1 acre. I should note that on the drawn portion, there's only a ½ acre, so he's going to have to find another ½ acre of land roughly. But I'm sure that's possible to get 1 acre on the site. Wine production and tasting and sales will be in the former residence on the property that was vacated when the new house was built on the site. No other buildings would be used as part of the winery. They will just be on site. And the event space, oh yes, this is more winery. Event space will be located on the yard to the west of the property, since events are allowed in this ag tourism permit. Parking for events and the property will be located mostly along the west side. 7 spaces will be required for the size of the parking area, for the size of the building. Plus, more parking spots are required for any sort of events, which will be located at the southeast corner of the property. He's going to carve out an acre or so of land out of the field for parking. No parking at any time will be allowed on Highway 42. For the operation of the site, he's requesting approximately to operate the winery from noon to 10 o'clock on any given day. And also, the initial is going to be seasonal, but he does plan on, if necessary, expanding it to all year round. But it'll be seasonal for the summer and fall seasons. Events are initially supposed to be small, but he does plan on growing, so they can get bigger. As I said, the event space will be located in the current yard to the west, and he has parking for approximately 150 cars, so he can get plenty of people out into that event space. Any event is going to require a temporary use permit for that as well. The proposal meets all requirements for ag tourism as a special use, which means we could have permitted it as is with the requirements under the ordinance. However, the petitioner is requesting an additional 400 square feet of sign, approximately 400 square feet of sign. Oops. Yep. The ag tourism permit allows, as part of the permit, 32 square feet of sign space to be located on the site. This site is located near commercial. For example, if it was zoned commercial, which is still going to be zoned ag, it would allow 2 square feet per linear foot of building, so it'd be approximately 120 square feet for kind of an approximation of what this site would have been if it was something else. So it is well above the ordinance requirements and limitations. The recommendations of and conditions of the staff only include 32 square feet of sign space because the 400 square feet is beyond zoning regulations. But that being said, I also note that this is along a busy road and it's long distance back from the road, so some additional signage may be nice for being able to be better viewed from the highway. Staff recommends approval of Ag Tourism 14.1 with the following conditions. The winery shall be secondary to the principal use of the property as a residential site and to the use of the property for agricultural production. If the residential use or agricultural production on the site ceases, the winery operation shall cease. The owner occupant of the dwelling shall be engaged in the winery production. The winery shall have a limit to 2 full-time non-resident employees, not to exceed 4 full-time employees on the site. All aspects of the wine production and sales shall conform to the provisions of South Dakota Law 3512. All aspects of the wine production sales shall conform to the provisions of Article 1213 of the 1990 Revised Zoning Ordinance of Minnehaha County. Wine tasting and sales shall be considered an accessory use to the winery. Wine tasting and sales shall be contained within the former residence that was marked on the provided site plan. A maximum of 4 special events with expected attendance of more than 450 people per day shall be allowed in any calendar year. No special event shall exceed 4 days in duration. A minimum of 60 days prior to any special event, the petitioner shall submit an event plan in the form of a temporary use permit for the planning director approval. The event plan shall include the location of proposed parking, numbers and placement of sanitary facilities such as porta potties or garbage dumpsters, a plan for proposed signage for the event, and an emergency plan detailing procedures to be followed in case of severe weather and any provisions of first aid. A private event shall not exceed 450 people in size because a parking plan does not support the needed parking for more people. This is based on the shown parking area containing enough space for approximately 150 cars, 1 car per 3 people. The hours of operation for the tasting room, public, and private events shall be within 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., including setup and breakdown of events. A minimum of 7 parking spaces must be available for the winery and tasting room, and all event parking must be contained on site as specified in the event plan. No parking shall be allowed on South Dakota Highway 42 at any time. That all outdoor lighting shall be a fully cut off and fully shielded design to prevent direct spillage of light beyond the property boundaries. The former dwelling shall be used for the winery and tasting room only. No persons shall reside in any part of the former dwelling at any time. A building permit is required for any remodeling that requires structural changes and additions to the proposed winery and tasting room. Any expansion or changes to the site will require application and approval from the planning director. Expansions include, but are not limited to, additions to the winery and tasting building, utilizing a building for producing, selling, or tasting wine other than those specified in the site plan, and any request for increased capacity in private or public events. That the total allowed permanent on-site signage shall not exceed 32 square feet. A building permit is required before any and all permanent signs are to be erected. That the Planning and Zoning Department reserves the right to enter and inspect the winery operation at any time after proper notice to the owner, to ensure that the property is in full compliance with conditional use permit conditions and approval of the Minnehaha County zoning ordinance. That's all conditions.
Any questions at this point, Al?
Yeah, Kevin, you indicated at the beginning there's a requirement of a minimum of 1 acre of fruit that must be planted there.
Yes.
Is that in South Dakota codified law, or is that part of the county stipulation?
That is part of the county stipulations to be part of the ag tourism permit.
It
That's
requires a
part of the
1 acre. Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed that was not included in the conditions. Did I miss that?
It's not there.
Okay.
Or is that assumed that if it meets the requirements of the?
Well, it's a requirement,
It is
but
a requirement.
if you like, you can add a condition,
You can always add conditions.
Okay.
you can add condition 18, just spell it out for them.
And Mr.
Yes, go ahead.
Chairman,
Continue.
Rural Service Center, this area, that intersection is designated as that. Would you clarify the scope of what a rural service center means?
A rural service center is an area that has traditionally or been an area where people from the community or in the county do business. So like the Wall Lake gas station at the corner, there's the commercial businesses at the corner. So people are coming to go, and generally they're located along highway intersections.
Okay.
I would disagree that this is what this is. This is away from the rural service area. There are 2 residences between this and the corner. This would be like what we ran into north of Renner, where it was spot zoning to do the commercial thing north. It'd be the same thing if this worked.
Well, I think what Kevin's saying is that right at that Wall Lake
There's a
corner,
few things.
it's identified at the Wall Lake corner, but
This is not a part of that area.
not necessarily, but it does fit into the ag tourism because it's zoned ag. I think he's just saying it's near that ag service area, or the rural service area. But we're not rezoning this property. It
No, I
stays
know.
zoned ag.
No, that was my last question. Thank
We're not
you.
rezoning it. It's still ag property.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll have a few later. But, Let's hear from the petitioner then, if there's no other questions for Kevin.
Good evening, I'm Rich Larson and I live at 46284 265th Street, Hartford, South Dakota. And the big question is how we got here tonight. First of all, I want to take the time to, being a lifelong resident of Minnehaha County, this first chance I've ever had to be in front of the board, so it's been an interesting meeting to say the least. But I'd like to thank you for your attention. The whole thing was intent here of what I was up to. My intent, I think the reason why I'm here, first and foremost, before I started the project, I came into planning and zoning prior to me doing anything and found out what the stipulations are to do a winery. Why did I want to do a winery? Well, it was kind of in my heart a little bit. If you see, and I think you guys showed, I would appreciate some help here, possibly putting this on there. Okay. When we built on the property, one thing that we didn't realize is the home that had been added on to 3 different times is actually a historical Minnehaha County home. If you look at the top photo of the home there, and you see the roof line, that was actually on Wall Lake, one of the first homes that was on Wall Lake prior to the year 1900. So when I was talking about, after I built my present home, about somebody come in, I was ready to give the house away, do something with it. It was added on so many times it wasn't cost efficient for anybody to move the home out. So it got deemed storage, and that's where it's at. And my wife and I had to make a decision on what we were able to do. Well, I finally said to Lowell Graves, who's a neighbor of ours, I said, Lowell, I said, I think I'm just going to, he was a farmer near the area, helps me out a little bit. I said, I think we're going to probably just either get a permit to light a match or do something like that. And he said, well, I guess it doesn't really have any, sentimental value, and he seemed troubled by it. And I went on to find out that here this home had been actually around this particular area. So at that point in time, I wanted to conserve the home. And I got to thinking on what I would do, and then that's where I came up with the idea of having a winery. The intent of the actual, I think the reason, when I found out that there was no conditional use permit was needed to do what my intent was, Kevin was very helpful in helping me get to that initial meeting. And I said, okay, there's no conditional use permit needed. I can do this as long as I follow the things that I read. So I did that. And I got a call sometime later from Kevin, said, you will need a conditional use permit. I said, oh. And he didn't really elaborate why at that time. There was nothing that was written on the ceiling or on the rooftop at that point in time. So I took the time then, and I reread it, and I said, well, I don't think I need a conditional use permit. But I didn't say anything else. I then went ahead and I went forward, kept going with my plans. I even made an additional phone call in to staff and Kevin. I said, hey, haven't heard anything from you guys. We're about 3-4 weeks down the road. I mean, is everything okay? Is everything fine? He made a point to say we haven't even looked at that application that I did apply for and paid the $250. He said it wasn't even looked at. Basically, what has brought attention to tonight's event was that I believe the building inspector had driven by and noticed, I think Kevin had one of the pictures of it partially being done. And at that point in time, this is when I was aware that 3/4 of the word wine may be considered a sign. And my intent was never to have this as my sign. If my intent was to have this as my sign, okay, I would have put Wall Lake Winery with my logo on it. I would have put wine for sale. I thought of it as decoration because as driving around the county, growing up here all my life, like I mentioned earlier, I many times see the historical barns that have the sides that I have seen farm names on and different things on the side. So trust me, it wasn't my initial creativity to come up with putting something on the sign. So I had seen it done, and you'd seen it done on a historic. I said, wow, that'd be neat to do. So that's what my intent was to basically follow things that I felt I had seen out in the county. Thank you. That I had seen out in the county before, and not make that my sign. Had I thought that was my sign, I am in business here in Sioux Falls. I do understand there's limits on the size of signage you can do and everything like that. So I certainly do apologize to staff if they believe my intent was to make this my sign. I did read the 32-foot square sign prior to this property being for this use. The county did approve the Dakota Wild Game Bird Farm, which was owned by a Kemp family, and that particular sign is still on premise. It is 32 square foot, it is framed, and will be then put up along the road and with some nice landscaping and everything like that around it. And that was once I change obviously the face of it, we'll have a logo, and then so people can drive by and identify the property and the signage as so. So I guess my whole hopes are that I don't have to ruin my roof line and my expensive new shingling job that's up there. I would like to. I would hope that the board could possibly understand that. Certainly, I was trying to do something different with the decor and the decoration of it. As you see, I've made a color change, and I matched the color change of the building to the lettering, so I made that look and everything like that in the same type of color. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
You have any? I'll start asking questions. Go ahead, Bill.
Question, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding a liquor license, how does that work?
Yeah, that's one thing that surprised me also, and as far as the liquor license goes, as long as you're zoned under this ag tourism, basically you provide free tasting, and after the tasting, then they are able to purchase bottles of wine through the winery, and then away they go. So it is not our intent at this time to apply for a county license for beer and wine. No, there would never be any liquor. I wouldn't have any need to do that. But I have talked to a couple wineries throughout the counties and things like that and got their opinions. Some have them, have the beer and wine licenses, and some don't. So at this point in time, as I'm getting started, I, at this point in time, understand that I'm able to do that type of use as was described earlier when Kevin was reading through everything.
Thank you.
Okay, you fall under the federal permit for a winery, correct?
Yes.
Have you applied for that?
A federal
Yes,
permit?
federal winery permit. These are regulated by ETF if you're producing wine. Have you applied for that?
At this time, no, I have not.
Okay, because those take a minimum of 6 months to hopefully get. Those take a while. Okay, so this is a good location. So the sign, that's 400 square feet, that's 432 square feet you're proposing.
I am proposing that that's not my sign. That's my decoration to my building.
Okay,
Just, Mike, in all seriousness, if the word tasting room is on the wineries, on premise on a lot of those things.
well, in all seriousness, this is absolutely wrong according to our ordinance. I don't see wine written on any of our wineries around the county who do a very nice job. They are very low key. They fit into the environment. They aren't in your face like this thing is. I lived in the Wall Lake area. I know Helen Grave, who lived in that house. I know Lowell. I worked for it. As far as I was concerned, when you originally built your new house, this one was supposed to have been tore down. and then you came back a year and a half later and said, oh, I really don't want to tear it down.
No, I was told on storage. It could be made to storage. Before I had even had it done, Mike, I took my stove out and I unhooked the water to the home and everything like that. And that was 5 or 6 years ago. So it wasn't a year and a half later. I think you're missing.
It was the
point.
next year. I know, I was on this planning commission who brought it up.
Okay.
Okay, because the same people a mile and a half south of this location, they followed the ordinance, they tore down their old house just like they were supposed to, and then this one comes up and nothing happened. But we're not talking about that today, we're talking about this.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing, if we're putting in a winery, okay, it takes at least 6 months to get that permit. You're supposed to produce with your own grape. I talked to someone who's actually wrote the South Dakota law, basically. He says the minimum grapes are 14 to 15 vines is the minimum, and we're putting in an acre. But the other thing is, okay, so why would we approve this when you have no grapes? So technically this is a retail wine outlet, is what it is, until you get your own grapes in place. And I don't know how else to look at that. Because how long does it tell me how long it takes to get grapes into production?
4 years.
Okay. Most of them say 3 when you ask them, the wineries. Okay, so we're about 3 years ahead of the horse here.
You can purchase vines, and I did do some investigation on that, and I intend on using that, but you can purchase vines that are basically ahead of the game, as we per se, and you can go instead of just from the seed, you can get them where they're about 2 years along, and then you have wine within 2 years, I apologize, but they have a good head start. I want to say this too. I came into staff, asking before I started. I want to make that point very, very clear. So you're bringing up this thing. Have you applied for a federal wine permit? I spoke to other wineries, and I never was told of a federal wine permit that I needed. But I'm glad to do so. I was never told.
It's not spelled out in our ordinance. It's not my response. I don't know.
It's not the
I have
county's
no idea.
responsibility. If you're going to do
I'm not
wine,
asking
produce
it.
liquor, produce wine, you have to have a federal license. That is just the business.
And we shall apply for a federal license. Everything
And once
will be
again,
licensed.
so you won't have any of your own grapes for at least 2 years. So we're supposed to approve a wine selling outlet, which is no more than a liquor store, which is a commercial use.
I don't see it like that.
Well, I know you don't, but that's how I see it. I live in this neighborhood, and that's the way I see it. We got a wonderful wine store here, and I don't see any grapes, no vines. What's the deal?
Well, I'm going to plant the
Eventually.
eventually.
Well, you're going to plant them this fall.
I'll plant them in the spring.
Yes,
I mean,
and it'll be
I'll
another 2 years before they produce.
produce grapes, but other wineries don't always use their own. Wineries don't just start; they buy grapes and bring them in. They buy South Dakota grapes and bring them in and produce wine at these wineries.
I know they all purchase some, but they also grow their own.
But not right away. They didn't. They had to purchase the grapes to begin producing their wine.
Well, the ones that have started in this county have all come to us. If you look at them, whether it be a straw bale or one of the people by Garrettson or wherever, they've had their grapes growing 2 years, and then they come in and ask to be a winery and get permission. And they don't have the cart ahead of the horse. They basically are ready the very next year. That's the way that most of those work. And that's why I'm questioning this one, because I don't see any grapes, I don't see any vines. It's just a wine sales room.
But I am going to be producing. There is a winery. It's not in this county, so I don't suppose that makes a difference. But they're basically, I based it off of. If you go out to Hill City, there is Valiant Vineyards has a winery there. There's absolutely no grapes whatsoever on the premise at all, but they're able to basically do the type of business structure that I described earlier. There's absolutely no field of grapes. Back in Vermilion, where they are producing grapes and everything like that, there is.
I understand the state law. I've read it as far as what a winery is allowed. They have to buy grapes that are produced in the state.
Right. Yeah, which I will do too. I have to purchase wine when I start bottling my wine.
Not this year, right?
Well, why can't I start bottling my wine as soon as I'm permitted to bottle my wine?
You have to be
And
a
then I have to
licensed
buy
winery
grapes.
first.
Excuse me?
You have to be a licensed winery first.
Right. And I intend to make sure all the licenses are in place
That
and
will not be
everything
in
like
place
that.
in the next 6 to 8 months. That's my concern.
Well, I appreciate your concern, but all licenses will be handled correctly. I'm not in a speed track to hurry up and do this. I'm trying to, I think one of the things that I wish you would kind of notice that I was trying to restore a historical home.
That's
And-
irrelevant to me. What I see is an illegal sign that's going to set a precedent in our county. That's what I see. But that's all I have.
I'm
Any
sorry
other
to fill
questions,
that
Mr.
out.
Kirschner?
Mr. Larson, so what's the deal on the sign? Are those shingles or is it?
That's shingles.
You shingled pink or red shingles?
No, excuse me, no, they painted. They
Okay.
painted on the shingles. And then it's painted and then there's an epoxy that goes over the top of it. Can I ask a question of the commission? Has anyone ever seen the words of a farm on the side of a historical barn as you've driven around, possibly a picture of a horse on the side of a barn? When I saw some training, I drove just around our neighborhood, since you're obviously my neighbor. I mean, there's pictures of this around. This is in our county.
But they aren't 28-foot wine signs.
They're larger, some of them are. I mean, they're larger farm names. I'm just saying that's where my whole thing went, is I saw that and I thought this would be also...
I want to come back to one thing, Rich, before we went further.
Sure.
On this, since we're talking the sign, okay. You said that you were not told that this was inappropriate by the planning commission, or by the planning office. 32 square foot, how did that multiply by more than 10?
Well, again,
A sign is a sign.
I went with the fact that I was trying to do a decor. I was trying to give it that outline, and my thought was, is the farm names that I saw on historical barns and things of that nature. I remember the Land O'Lakes barn being outside of town forever, having Land O'Lakes on the side of
Actually
it.
said Lakeview.
Excuse me,
It's Lakeside.
Lakeview. I apologize. But you obviously saw that too.
That
over
was
the
before
years.
planning and zoning.
Oh, I see. I wasn't aware, but I'm sure that this type of thing has not been done. This, by the way, I mean, I object to the fact that I'm just trying to do a liquor store. I do take offense to that. I'm not selling any liquor, and I'm not intending on selling. These are South Dakota-made products. This will be South Dakota. This will be South Dakota fruit. These will be South Dakota jams. This will be South Dakota honey from Deffenbaugh Honey. These will benefit other people in the county that raise and produce these type of things. And overall, too, I see we fall under something, ag tourism. We're trying to create tourism throughout. Apparently, that's something our state wants to do, is to bring tourists in to actually visit South Dakota wineries, so we can create and show how good our products are. I want to be a part of that. I don't want to open up a liquor store. I appreciate your concern, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to basically produce. And I apologize that I have not got 2 or 3 acres of grapes grown. I did not intend to be, I own 33 acres there. I could plant 27 acres of grapes. I did not want to produce that many grapes, and as I understand the statutes and the laws, I didn't have to. I had to produce an acre of grapes. I had to plant an acre of grapes. I wasn't ever told, or what I had ever thought, that said, well, you got to start growing them ahead of time. I talked to other wineries before I started this.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go back to the sign for a minute.
Sure.
So, if you, and I have a question for staff on this too, what does it look like from the highway? But first let me ask you, if you wind up not being in the wine business, what are you going to do with that sign?
Oh, and I'd have to, if in other words, my wine business did not.
Yeah, let's say you decided that you were going to go into, something else. that was an obsolete sign?
Well, I would take the 32 square foot sign down that I, and obviously I'd remove that and take it down. And if that particular business would not work, I would assume take that off of the side of the building. My intent is not to fail.
Right.
You asked.
What's it look like from the highway?
I'm basically standing on the edge of the right of way. I took the sign this morning, and that's basically from the edge of the right of way.
It's a pretty big sign.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else? We're starting to rehash old ground. Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience want to address this? Kind of discussion? Go ahead. I'll have a couple comments. What are you thinking?
I was just thinking, what if
I still get back to precedence. Okay,
Yeah.
32 square foot is the precedence. That's a 400 square foot sign. I don't care if it's on, especially since it's brand new. So how many more of those you want around the county? Every time somebody comes in, oh, I can paint that, and then I'll be in ag tourism. And that is inappropriate. The other thing, like I say, I still maintain that until they actually produce wine on site, that this is nothing more than a retail wine store, which is a commercial use. And the county requires you to have a half acre of grapes or an acre, whatever it is. Well, that should be in place before the winery permit's in. And like I said, also, in talking to the guys, we're at least a year ahead of time as far as this thing being an actual winery, permitted winery. If that's what it is, the winery, then let's see a permit first. You've got and right now, actually, technically, what we have is an enforcement issue. We don't have a zoning issue. He's out of compliance with, what are we going to deal with our very next item? An enforcement issue. So why would we approve this with an enforcement issue?
On the other hand, taking the view of, we don't want to discourage entrepreneurial activity in our county.
No, just follow the rules, and we certainly don't. Have we discouraged any of the other wineries from starting up? No.
No, but there have been other sign violations, I know.
Well, that would not be approved in the Red Rock corridor, I can tell you that. We just went through that whole big deal, getting that all figured out.
Well, what was it, Highway 90 racetrack out there?
Useless.
Humboldt and
Oh, that one.
Speedway, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They had issues on their sign.
Mhm.
So what other, Mike, talking about the regulation of this type of operation, is it the Department of Tourism, is it the Department of Agriculture?
It's both. It's a state permit for this type of thing, is my understanding, if you follow state law. And then
So-
you also have to, you have to have an ATF permit.
Would they be able to tell us if this complied basically with their permit stuff?
So, I asked Ty Eichenbaum, who's with the Department of Ag. Bill probably is familiar with that individual. And he referred me to a fellow who's basically a former legislator who basically wrote the law. And he's the one who came up with the grapes, but he says the toughest thing is to get the federal permit to be a winery. Because this particular individual is also right now trying to get a distiller's license, which is tougher yet. Because that's becoming more popular to have these private distilleries, which is fine. But it all comes under the ATF, so they get their taxes and all that stuff, is really what it's about. So like I say, that's where I'm coming from. Basically, like I say, it's, as far as I'm concerned, we have an enforcement issue first. And how can you improve something that's something that glaring?
Well, I guess I just wonder where the Department of Agriculture or whatever would rule on something like this. Bill, what do you think?
They have nothing on signs.
No, I'm agreeing on signs, so that's two issues. One is the winery, one is the sign, so.
Because what Eichenbaum said was it all basically ends up back to the federal permit.
So even if we approve it, he'll still have to get his federal thing, and by then, maybe the grapes will be 5 years old.
It could be next spring. They say 6 months at the most.
Right.
So. Any other discussion?
You could, I'm just throwing this out for an idea, but you could add a condition that says, or make it very clear that they can't operate the sale of the business until he gets the 1 acre of grapes planted. I mean, I think that the applicant is correct. Many wineries buy pears and they make pear wine. They buy rhubarb and they make rhubarb wine. So that's not uncommon that they may buy someone else's grapes, but it is in our ordinance that they have to have 1 acre of grapes growing on the property, and I think that implies they're growing before there's activity occurring. So,
To me, that would be a fair compromise.
And that leaves off the enforcement thing.
Yeah.
Still.
well, that takes care of the 1 acre, and now you have to decide to do what to do with the sign.
So if I made a motion to support what he said, what is that motion? It's to allow him to
It would read something
begin going
like,
into the business with planting and seeking a federal permit or whatever.
Well, actually, you could have 2. Cannot operate winery until the federal permit is in place. And number 19 would be 1 acre of grapes must be planted before the
Okay, that would be my motion.
operation is in place. And how about the sign?
I
I
have
think that's
another,
the second thing.
well, I have another question related to this, if I could please.
Do we have any motions yet?
The hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. for tasting room, public, and private events. 6 a.m. seems
In the morning?
incredibly early for events.
It's not correct. Sorry, I apologize.
But we can certainly change it to 8 really quick. Because we're talking about amendments right now.
What is the hours you would like to operate?
May I approach?
Please.
Thank you.
If it's wrong in our stuff here, we should find out what it is.
I believe earlier, Kevin, you read my hours of operation, and would you please reiterate those hours? And
Events shall be
where
within
is
6
excuse me,
a.m.
Mike, where is 6 a.m.
to
to
10 p.m. is what it says.
6 a.m.?
Yeah.
That's not what
He
you
said
wrote.
that he wanted 12 noon to 10 p.m. The 6 a.m. Was added because for any events that may need set up for in the morning sort of thing.
That's standard for 7.
That was what I found in other special events.
Okay.
So maybe that could be moved to a different time and have a special events sort of time that if he needs extra setup time or something, I don't know.
So if we just said 8 o'clock, that would be better?
you can make it 8.
Well, we just say 8 o'clock.
Are you gonna be okay with
So
8?
4 hours, you're talking noon.
Yes, I am. I would have a question of staff also, please. I think one of the things that I think I talked to you before going in, if I shorten those days of operation and shorten those hours of operation, because trust me, my wife wasn't too happy when I was telling her the 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. either. That's not our intent. But if you shorten up those hours of operation, do you then have to go back to the county and say, hey, I'm changing my hours to a longer? So I think what we had talked about was to give it a larger window, and then if I run shorter than that, that'll be no problem.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. If you run shorter, that's not a problem.
Okay, but if I would tell you guys today that these hours of operation are lower, then I would then have to come back to say they're more? I'm opening longer?
Correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
You
So
have,
that's why I put it for
Yes, we
that
have
window
more.
of time. So I did work with staff on that to understand that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay.
So my motion would be to,
We're gonna change your hours of operations as well, 8 o'clock, 8 to.
I'm happy to do that. I'm sure it's-
But I'm just going down the list here, that was the first one,
Okay.
that's number 9.
If it's just primarily for setup, that's
Eight o'clock should
fine.
be
I
fine.
just thought the tasting room open at 6 a.m. sounded,
You get the hardcore wine for those hours.
We'll just stay up until they open.
That's right. Get the bar crowd out of Sioux Falls coming through there at 6.
I can wait in the driveway.
Hopefully they leave the county for gas purposes. Okay, so then number 2, then we've got federal permit. What was the other condition you were talking about, Ed?
Plant an acre.
That's plant 1 acre, must be in place.
Mr. Chairman, in the section 12.13 of the ag tourism, B1, G is in golf, it does say a minimum of a half an acre product used in production. So I just want to clarify,
Oh,
what
okay.
it says in the book is a half an
Okay,
acre.
then we should make it
So
half
we
an
should
acre.
make
It
half
does
an
also
acre.
say in the same book an acre.
Does it?
Yes. Where was that at?
I'm happy with the half. That's Linda. That's a lot of fine.
Must have
And
1
I
acre
was-
crops grown.
I've noticed
Right.
that there was a discrepancy that it does say 1 acre.
Well, that could
Yeah,
be
in the very
raspberries
first
or something.
sentence, wineries producing selling product in tasting room, which must have 1 acre of crops grown.
Yeah, so the way, you're correct, the way I would read it is that you have to have a 1 acre of some type of fruit production used for something that's ag tourism related, and then the winery itself requires a minimum of a half an acre of grapes.
So you could have like a half an acre of rhubarb and a half an acre of
So we just
grapes,
say
and
one-
that would be 1 acre of
1 acre of
Apples.
or apples, pears, whatever.
Okay. Yes. Let's go.
That, okay, so then you mentioned the federal permit needs to be in place,
Yeah.
and then what about the sign?
I can't support the sign the way it looks there. I think we have to stick with the 32 square foot on the road. That's what everyone else abides by. I would agree with the
That's
chairman.
already part of the condition, isn't it?
It's written at 32 square feet. If you want to change that number, you can change it to whatever you want.
No, 32, that's number 15, shall not exceed. And you almost should state that includes all roof area. If you'd add that to that, Jeff, in that motion.
Sure.
Okay, so the motion is as written with number 9 modified to 8 to 10, number 13, no, not number 13, I'm down to it. 15 says not to exceed 32 feet, including all roof areas. Number 18 would be 1 acre of fruit or vines must be planted. And number 19 would be the federal winery permit must be in place before sales start. Does that cover it?
That's it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I had a question before you vote on condition number 18. Is it that they have to have 1 acre of let's see, 1 acre of crops grown on the site prior to the business opening? I want to make sure I understand what your intent is.
That's what I understood.
Mr. Larson, would that work for you?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Well, really what I want clarification on is the condition. The way they have condition number 18 written is that before you can open your business, you're going to have 1 acre of 1 acre
Half
of
acre
crops.
grapes and half acres of something else.
1 acre. You're going to have half an acre of grapes planted and a half an acre of something else, or 1
Minimum.
acre of grapes. You need to have 1 acre of
Something.
crops grown on your property before you operate your business. Open it. Is that your intent, or do you want to allow? Do you want to allow?
That's what I thought.
I guess I'm not sure.
That's intent.
I want to have the discussion now, so we're all on the same page.
May I again, I mean, I can sit or walk up front, it doesn't make any difference. I appreciate Commissioner Barth and talking about creating the entrepreneurial spirit, and I certainly am surprised by some of the negativity that is being brought here. I thought I was doing something nice. I thought I was doing something nice. I thought I was beautifying the area. I thought I was doing things well. The intent, I know you guys go all over this calling it a sign. I so wish that the whole thing got brought up when the county building inspector...
That's not correct. I got a complaint from a citizen. That is prior to the building inspector.
Okay, I did not hear of that or
Well,
anything. It would have been nice because I would have scrapped the whole thing. The only thing that is now is obviously my $10,000 roof. If you guys are going to say that that can't be up there, so basically that means I have to take it. Your intent is, if you do not approve, that I have to take this all down. It would be interesting to see how many of this type of signage is out of compliance and where we do draw the line. Am I under different types of statutes than, say, someone raising beef on a farm that advertises their product, their farm, you know, and of all those things? I mean, I understand that I did not put wine for sale up there. I did not put my logo up on the rooftop. I put something up on that rooftop that I felt I was decorating my whole building with, and also I felt that through ag tourism, we're promoting a brand no more than Eat Beef. When you see Eat Beef, you don't see Eat Bill Evans Beef. You say Eat Beef to create our products to be sold nationwide. Isn't that the intent of something such as this provision being made for those of us that have acreages in the county to be able to create this product and create tourism and create this type of entrepreneurial spirit throughout the state? Tonight I've heard that I'm opening up a liquor store. I mean, I'm
Beauty
sorry.
is in the eye of the beholder.
You feel that I'm opening up, if I needed to
It's
open...
not a liquor store, Rich. What it is just, as I said earlier, look at the wineries around the county.
And mine is going to be substandard to that as
They
some
all
form
look-
of a dumpy old liquor store?
They,
Is that what you're saying, sir?
Mr. Chairman, we let's not get too far afield here. We
Yes.
have a motion.
yes, we do. But all I'm saying is, to me, it's just, that's what you see from the Wall Lake corner when you look west. Is that appropriate for something that's supposed to be low-keyed? Most of the wineries, like I say, they have 32 square foot signs.
Can
They fit
appreciate
into
that,
the
and I read
neighborhoods
that.
very well.
And I read that. And that's, again, was not my intent. And I don't want to reiterate because we're going to, but I just believe that the wineries that you see, if you obviously give us an opportunity to develop it, and you'll see as good a quality of winery as anyone else in the state. And I would contend that I would work with my partners throughout the South Dakota Wine Association, who I have contacted, to continue to follow their lead, because I am impressed with the wineries that are out there right now. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel in any way, shape, or form by opening up some type of thing. I want to grow South Dakota grapes. I want to promote South Dakota products. And I want to use this historical building that's on this property. At one time, this is where the Wall Lake General Store was located. I want to tell a history of Wall Lake. So my intent, again, is I think of higher level than possibly where you think I'm bringing it down. And
Okay, thank you. We need to move on.
and I appreciate that, but I certainly wanted to bring that point out that that I want that being said. As far as planting the acre of grapes before I can operate, I'll plant whenever I need to plant. I'm going to follow the rules. Whatever the other wineries had to do, I think that should be the same as what I will do. So if I have to plant the acre before I can begin, then that's what we'll do. We'll plant the acre of grapes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second.
Did you, Mr. Chairman, you got the
Yeah,
clarification?
I think
looking for
it,
Scott on that?
Condition 18 is going to say that 1 acre of crops have to be planted prior to the operation of the winery or the. Yeah, I get your intent.
Yeah, I would say just 1 acre, I would stipulate at least a half acre of that
Yeah.
has to be grapes. I want,
1 acre. Just like the ordinance says, basically.
Yeah, just like the ordinance says.
just like the ordinance says, yeah.
Any other discussion? Not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
And the chairman will vote no, too, since I don't agree with the sign thing. Okay,
Wasn't the sign a separate issue? Weren't we,
what's in here?
It's in there.
I think there's other issues involved. Okay. We move on to our next issue item. That one is passed by the board. Let's move on to our, is this the Board of Adjustment or is it just
No,
the regular?
it's the recall.
Okay.
David Heinold, Planning Department. We just have a recall of conditional use
Yep.
14-05 for failure to meet the conditions of approval. On June 3rd, or specifically, it's condition number 3 that all outdoor storage areas be screened with a 90% of KSB fence. This is at the RS sanitation site, east of Wall Lake Corner. Here's the site plan. The screen fence should have been located on the east side between the neighbor's property, which is a residential use property, and the commercial property, which is where RS sanitation is located. So on June 3rd, 2014, staff received a complaint from Bonnie Bonson, who lives to the east, that RS sanitation has not installed a screen fence for the outdoor storage area. So I went out and inspected the property and confirmed that the fence on the east side has not been installed yet. So on June 3rd, I contacted Todd Snyder, who's here tonight, and asked him if he had a contractor lined up for the installation of the screen fence for the outdoor storage area. Mr. Snyder's told me that he has been busy working on other things this spring, and he is waiting for contractors to return his inquiries. I informed him that he is in violation of the conditions approved by the Planning Commission on January 27, 2014, and that he would have 2 months to install the fence. If the fence has not been installed by August 4, 2014, then we will need to take corrective action on CUP 14-05. So on August 7, 2014, I met with Mr. Snyder's to get an update on the fence, and he mentioned that they were waiting to get the sheet metal for the fence panels. He stated that the fence post should be up within the next couple of weeks. On August 19, 2014, Kay Bonson, who lives to the east as well, the same property, asked what the next step in the process will be since the screen fence has not been put up yet. I told her that RNS Sanitation needs to have the fence put up by August 29th, or the item will need to be placed on the September Planning Commission meeting agenda tonight. On August 29th, I inspected the property and spoke with RNS Sanitation staff members. They indicated the fence should be put up within a couple of days and that Todd was out of town. On September 5th, I spoke with Mr. Snyder's, and he indicated that they are still working with the contractor to get the fence panels. He noted that the post holes were filled in because they were not ready to install the posts, and as a safety precaution. He mentioned that it has become more challenging than he thought because the location of the fence is so close to the drainage way on the east side of the property that is always too wet and muddy. He understands that the fence needs to be put up as soon as possible before winter comes and the ground is frozen. And on September 15th, I inspected the property, and the fence still has not been put up yet. And I did speak with him a couple of days earlier, and Scott and Kevin went out, and they inspected, and the fence has not been put up yet. So staff finds that the petitioner has had a reasonable amount of time to install the fence and recommends that if the fence is not installed prior to October 27th, which is the next Planning Commission meeting, then Conditional use permit 14-05 should be revoked. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Questions? We shall hear from the petitioner then. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Todd Snyders, owner of Ordnance Sanitation in Salem, South Dakota. Everything's pretty much close to what David said here. And in the spring, it was very difficult to get in there because I have to go through the drainage just on the east side, get up on the bank on the other side to put the posts in. And I didn't really want to tear that all up if I could possibly help. But it was wet until probably 2/3 of the way through June. And at that time, I had lined up getting some posts from power line that was being taken down out by Salem. And it was supposed to be taken down in July. Well, 1 week went past after another, and of course, it didn't get done in time. So when David came to me here a couple weeks ago, I decided, well, I better find some other posts. Went online, Craigslist, found some posts over by Rock Rapids, Iowa. Made arrangements to purchase them, picked them up last Thursday morning, paid $600 for them, and before the end of the day, I found out the posts that I really wanted in the first place were available. So I went and got them Friday morning, but it still cost me $600 to buy the other posts, because I could have got these good posts free, so I was kind of waiting for those in July.
So when will the fence be done?
When will the fence be done? Well, definitely by October 27th.
That's all I need to know.
I have everything. I have all the posts there. I have the sheet metal there. I have everything on site. So.
Okay, thank you.
So I would make a motion that if the fence is not installed prior to October 27th, the conditional use permit be revoked.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That needs to be done by October 27th. New business.
No new business other than
Just,
I think David gives an
just the
update.
finalization of the date for the Envision 23
Yeah.
workshop at Humboldt Community Center, 6:30 to 7:30 on the 16th.
16th of October.
Yeah, October.
Anything else?
Under county commission items, I do want to report that the rezoning 14-5, which was for the commercial R1 at Renner Corner, that the county commission overturned your recommendation and approved it as the petitioner had requested, with the 400 feet, which was the 4 acres of commercial in the front, and then the 13 acres of residential in the back. So that becomes effective on the 28th. So.
Any comments, Commissioner Barth?
I think so, but I don't remember anymore.
Well, I think that the applicant made a good, and it wasn't anything that we didn't all agree with, that no one wants to build houses along the highway. And that really is, I think, what the county commission focused on and decided that it was probably best suited for commercial rather than anything else, based on what the traffic and the
Meanwhile, the state refused to study our traffic anymore.
However, they did do something on our road, on Highway 42 by Cherry Lake. They slowed us down to 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The difference between that area and the Renner areas, we have a left turn lane in there, plus the development put in 2 right turn lanes. I don't know if the state paid for them or Van Busker did. But so it's a totally different road. But that's north of Renner. That's kind of a scary road there for a couple miles.
Yeah, and there was a bit of a chicken and egg there, where the state said that if you tell us where you're going to put here, we'll figure out the road, as opposed to us saying, why don't you figure out the road and then we'll decide what to put here.
The state did ask for the general development plan that Mr. Sadat had proposed, and I did forward that to, I'm trying to think what his name was, Mr. Jansen, Scott Jansen. So they do have a copy of his preliminary sketch plan showing the commercial and the residential uses. So that's all I have for under county commission report items.
Okay, anybody else have anything else? Otherwise, move to adjourn.
Until 9 a.m.
Until 9 a.m.
Yeah.